Hey, what's up, guys? Gonna be talking more about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003 cartoon series. I finally got around to watching the complete series, all episodes I finally got around to watching. And my previous video, I talked about this show. I only watched the first 5 seasons during the recording of that video. And I also showed off in that video that I recently got the complete series on DVD. But in this video, I'm here to tell you that I finally watched the rest of the show. I watched Season 6, the fast forward episodes, and also Season 7, the Back to the Sewer episodes. And I finally watched it all the way to the end, to the series finale. And this is just me giving you guys my final thoughts on this show. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And let's just get it out of the way. Let's talk about Season 6. What do I think of this particular season? This was the most lackluster season of all. I can see why fans don't like this particular season of the series, because it's the worst season by far. Already you got a problem because the main theme song is annoyingly catchy. It gets in your head. It just gets stuck in there for days and days, and it just won't go away. So already you got a problem. You got something against you. But it feels like a lot of filler. It just feels like 26 episodes that are pretty much filler episodes, and you got the turtles getting zapped into the future 2105, and they meet Cody, which is a relative to Casey and April. And Cody has this robot, and his robot serves him as like a loyal companion, but he's also like a father figure as well. And you have where Cody is got a uncle that's kind of like shady as fuck, and he's pretty much the enemy, the villain of this season. And then you got this other villain, this mutated alien purple thing, which I kind of liked him better than the uncle. But yeah, and then you got some other guys like a trickster who betrays the turtles. He's always stabbing them in the back, and you don't know what side he's on. He's like, is he someone that's on their side, they're helping them out, or is he just in it for himself? It's kind of both. Yeah, but I mean, overall, I didn't really care much for this particular season. There was a couple episodes that stood out in my mind. The one where Raphael fights this mutated, alien wrestler. He's wrestling with this thing, So, yeah, that was one of the highlights. I would say it's kind of different, but the whole setting of them being in the future, the turtles and everything, it just feels like kind of like the Jetsons. That's what I felt like. I felt like the turtles meet the Jetsons, because it's like out, in the future where there's flying cars and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's just like one of those things, like, it overstays its welcome. It shouldn't have been 26 episodes. It shouldn't have been, such a focus for the entire season. It shouldn't have been only a few episodes and then they went back home. Instead, they had to just drag this thing out, and every episode seems like it's the same. So yeah, it's not really that interesting of a season. So, the robot, I think his name is Starling or something like that. At times I laugh at him, he's okay, but Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just after a while, it just overstays its welcome, and you just wish it'd go back to the way it used to be with the previous spy seasons. And that's what happens at the end of the season. They have where they show a preview of the new main theme song they're going to have for season 7, which is back to the sewer and the intro and everything, which is a you know already that this next season is going to be better, and it is definitely season 7, this series finale and everything leading up to it is definitely an improvement. Yeah, leaps and bounds better than season 6, the fast forward episodes. Season 7, back to the sewer, I can say that I enjoyed it a lot more. Definitely, I actually enjoyed season 7 better than season 5. So yeah, because there was more Shredder, and the episodes kept me entertained. There was only like 13 episodes altogether in that season, and it kind of brought me back to season 1. Kind of brought it back to basics, and and this season, season 7, back to the sewer. They have where Splinter is stuck out in cyberspace, and he's like broken up into bits, and they gotta like find all of his bits and put him back together to make him whole again, and bring him back into the real world. And you got Shredder stuck out in cyberspace, and now he's called Cyber Shredder, and they gotta deal with him trying to come back into the real world and all that stuff. And yeah, they kept bringing back Shredder a lot in this series, and I heard that was a common complaint with fans that they kept bringing him back. But honestly, I'd rather see him again than what we had in season 6, where it's just mainly the villains I didn't really care about, or just storylines that weren't that interesting. At least I could say Cyber Shredder in season 7 at least entertained me. He was still lethal and threatening, and even though I don't care for how they treated Shredder in this series with his origin story, and them just continue to change things. And they have Imposter Shredder, they have Karai as Shredder, they have Demon Shredder, and now it's Cyber Shredder. I mean, just we keep trying to find different ways to bring him back, but it's like, can't we just go back to the original Shredder, which was a human, Rokusaki? I'd rather see that than see all the silly changes that are unnecessary, But yeah, as far as the redesigns of the turtles, at first it was kind of off-putting because they look a little different than the previous 6 seasons of the show. The turtles now have, pupils in their eyes, as opposed to what they were having before, where there's just white. You couldn't see their pupils at all. So that was a little different. I'm not sure why. I guess they were trying to make it more closer to the TMNT movie that came out around the same time during this season. So yeah, but it kind of reminded me of the 87 cartoon series because they had, pupils in their eyes. So it didn't bother me too much. I got used to it after a while. It kind of was like a throwback to the old cartoon series, the way they looked. But what was really odd is they looked that way, when they were out in the real world. But when they went out in cyberspace, it looked the same way, the same design they did in the previous 6 seasons, which was really odd how they did that. And yeah, Casey Jones looks a little different, not too much, but April O'Neil looks the most different of all the redesigns of the characters. Definitely, she's got lighter red hair, and she seems a little more slimmer and a little I don't know, more cutesy looking. I mean, it didn't bother me that much. It was just kind of threw me off a little, but I got kind of used to it after a while. And I did like the fact that this season focused more on the main characters, which is the turtles, which is Casey and April, and those are the characters I'm more invested in and more interested in than you know the villains, because it seemed like the first season of the show was focused on the main characters, the turtles, and you know Casey and April and Splinter and all that stuff. But then after the first season, then season 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, it seemed like they were more focused on other people than the main characters, which to me kind of just drags it on and doesn't make it as interesting. I mean, it's nice to go back to basics and go back to more of a focus on the characters that you want to watch, and you know all these characters you love, you know. So it was cool to see that once again, and it was cool to see Casey and April finally get married in the last episode, which is the series finale, and that was a good bookend to the series. And even though Shredder and his goons try to break up the wedding, and you know this major big epic fight at the end with the turtles and everyone else fighting, it was pretty epic and pretty cool. And Casey and April finally get married at the end, and that's how the show ends. And I thought that was a good way to end the series. Actually, I think it was a better ending than the 1987 cartoons ending, the series finale for that show, because that felt a little underwhelming for that show. A show that went on for 10 seasons and that's your ending to the show. I mean, it was okay for what it is, but this one, I think, was a better way to end a series such as this. So I liked that direction of where they went with this series. And I mean, this show, it has its problems. It definitely does. It's not as good as the 87 cartoon series because that's the one I grew up with, and it just had more interesting villains and, had individual episodes where they're standalone episodes. There wasn't many story arcs or anything like that. It was more focused on the turtles. This series, there's more focus on the villains than there are the turtles, it seems, and there's more seriousness, and it just seems like it could have been more lighthearted, like the original show. They could have had at least have some little silliness in there. I mean, they do have it with Michelangelo being a goofball and stuff like that, and little humor here and there with Splinter being a sarcastic, or Raphael being a smartass or whatever. I mean, it has that in there, but it's just you kind of want more of it in there. It doesn't have to be so serious all the time. I mean, even the first movie, live action film, had a lot of humor in it. Had a nice balance of everything. So I mean, overall, this series has a lot of problems, but I think it has a lot of good things to offer as well. And there's some entertainment value. And I think after watching this show, I can say I like it a lot more now. Because before I was kind of like, I wasn't really too into it. It was okay. But now I come to appreciate it a little bit more now after watching, the entire series of this show. I've come to appreciate it a little bit more now. Not as good as the 87 cartoon series, but I think it's an overall decent show with issues here and there. I wish they could have improved on some things, had more of Casey and April in it, or more focus on the main characters, but there's some good things. If you can just skip season 6, the fast forward episodes, I think you have an overall pretty good series. because season 6 fast forward episodes are entirely unnecessary filler and don't even need to be in this series whatsoever. And yeah, it's just one of those things. Anyways, this is my thoughts on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2003 cartoon series. Hope you guys enjoyed this final thoughts on the show, and I will talk to you later sometime in the next video. All right, take care.